Sometimes it is true that human beings, wait, don't worry, we're just going on a roll here. No, sometimes it's true that a lot of the innovation and a lot of things that change the world don't happen because there was a smart guy, but it actually happens because there was someone that was curious enough to ask themselves why. And even beyond why, to ask themselves, why not? Oh, this cannot be done. Why not? I've started 5 companies. And when I started my first companies, my parents told me, Alex, you're gonna do this? This is not gonna work. And so like, why not? When I started the first pre-acceleration program in the world for startups, and I got someone telling me, Alex, you intend to change society as it's conceived in Spain. And I said like, well, someone has to do it. Why not? So to talk about why not, I want to welcome our next speaker. So please welcome Alex Dean, inventor of IA technology. Big applause, Alex. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much. Hi. So I'm going to get right into it. I love animals. I'm especially drawn to the weird, the wonderful, the ones that look like aliens. When I was young, I wanted to be a vet specializing in exotic animals. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my favorite animals. This is the ii. It's I find it pretty cute, actually. You know, big eyes, hair going up in every direction. To me, it kind of looks like you plugged him into an electrical socket. And everything goes up. So he's very cute. He lives in Madagascar. It's a type of lemur. Engages in percussive foraging behavior for feeding. So he has a very long middle finger. So he taps on trees to find where the insects are and then burrows the insects out. But according to Madagascarian folklore, ii are considered really evil. So if you see an ii, you're supposed to kill it on sight. And if it points its finger at you, you're going to die immediately. So I really like the ii because it has a whole kind of backstory and magic behind it. This is... Oh, that's green. Thank you. This is the glass frog. So I just put it up here because it looks kind of cool. So it's completely transparent. When it's live, you can actually see the blood pulsing through its organs, its heart contracting like this. So I find these really interesting. Some people don't find these interesting. Most don't find them cute. But I think we can all agree on one animal that we all like. This guy. And I've always asked myself, why do we like monkeys? Why? Yes, they're very cute, but I think it's something else that draws us to them. It's their curiosity. Right? At their heart, they have a playfulness about them. And I think we can resonate with that as humans. We see in them a bit of us. So there's been a lot of work over the past couple of years about comparing humans and apes. And specifically, the big question is, are humans smarter than apes? And what's the answer? Anybody know? The answer is actually no. So, for all intents and purposes, we're basically equivalent in terms of smartness as apes. So they can do much of the same as what we can do. They can recognize each other's faces. They can recognize their own reflection. They can understand the concepts of fairness, equality. They have higher cognitive thinking. They actually wipe the floor with us in terms of short-term spatial memory. So they have, a couple of advantages where we don't. Where we have the advantage is we have more developed symbolic thinking, so more language. But obviously something puts us ahead of the apes, right? Humans have gone a lot farther up in the world than apes. So what is it that puts us ahead? We have a little intrinsic factor, a magic factor, that has made the human race what it is. Right? This magic factor has given rise to Monet and Picasso and Bach and Beethoven, all these great names. But in terms of, it's really unique to us, this magic factor. We don't see this in terms of other species. As cool as it would be, we do not see this guy with a beret and a cigarette and a paintbrush painting Monet, as cool as it would be. So, why tell this to you? I want to go into some of my background and where I grew up and how my thinking kind of developed. So I am originally from a city in Canada called Windsor, Ontario. We're on the border between Canada and the US, so I can see Trump land, but I don't actually have to live there, so that's good. And now I live in Montreal. And I had a very eclectic, creative, free childhood. So I used to spend a lot of time in the basement just building projects. So this is from when I think I was around 8 or 9. I decided to build an osmotic power plant. Does anyone know what that is? Or have you been to a plant like that? Basically, you use osmotic power plants for energy generation. So I'm going to do a bit of a little science fair presentation here. So we have a tank full of really salty water, and a line coming in from the top from my kitchen faucet upstairs with pure water, and a little permeable filter in between. So the difference in salt concentration is going to suck water out from the pipe going in into the tank, and we can use that pressure differential to drive a generator and generate electricity. So I was actually able to create enough energy to run 4 or 5 light bulbs off of this, I was pretty impressed with myself at age 8 and 9. But the problem is that I had a co-partner, which was my sister, upstairs on the faucet. And she was supposed to control the flow, and she messed up. She put it on full blast. I had water coming all the way in, and basically this whole thing just went pop, like that, and it flooded the entire basement. And my parents were not impressed, but despite that, they allowed me to keep innovating and creating new things. So this is another one of the things that I made. I think I must have been probably same age, 9 or 10. It's called a salt gradient solar pond. So this is a heat lamp that I stole from my lizard because I was out of materials. And basically what it's doing is it's warming this liquid that also has a lot of salt and some other compounds. And there's a different kind of heating going on in different parts of that system. So there's hot areas and there's cold areas. And I basically have antifreeze running in a circuit like this inside and running a motor and creating electricity. That was, in theory, it did not work at all. So some of them work and some of them don't. This is another one that didn't work, probably one of my less smart ideas. I had read something about measuring the energy content of manure. So I called up my family's friends who are pig farm owners and went to their pig farm and collected pig poop. And I brought that home. The problem was that it was winter in Canada. So I decided to burn this pig poop inside my basement. And basically it smelled up the entire house for 3 weeks. And it was a mess. But I determined the energy content of poop. So why tell this to you? Well, there's one thing in common between all 3 of those projects, which is that none of them are innovations. None of them are anything new. They've all been done before. But they all forced me to think. They all forced me to ask the question why. And I asked question upon question upon question, and I trained my mind to think why. Why does this happen? Why? And what I learned was that eventually this leads to why not. And why not is innovation. So let's go into why not. When I was 12, I was walking around downtown and I met a woman who was standing on the side of the road. And she was just standing there, and I thought that was really strange behavior because she wasn't crossing the road. So I went up to talk to her, and I looked in her eyes, and I realized that she had some visual impairments and she was blind. So I asked her, what was out there currently for the blind to help you navigate? And the answer is basically 2 things. One is a guide cane, and 2 is a guide dog. So guide canes basically are sticks you wave around and hit objects with so you can avoid them. But they don't actually help you get to your destination. They don't know where the destination is in relation to you. The second one is guide dogs. Guide dogs can cost $40,000 to train. They only last a couple of years. And again, if they don't know your destination, they're not going to be able to get you there. So a couple weeks later, I, by chance, was in art class. I really love to paint. This is some of my stuff. And I was painting this picture, which is a famous photo that Steve McCurry took called Afghan Girl. So it's my painting is a really big one, so I was painting it with my fingers. And I was running my fingers over the canvas, and I realized that I could feel every rut and bump and all the texture. And my hands were so sensitive to touch, I was so surprised. So I thought, why not direct the blind using their touch? Why not do that? So I created the IA. This is one of the early prototypes. The main thing that sets the IA apart is this right here. It's a rudimentary joystick. So what happens is the IA compiles a lot of information about your surroundings from sensors and things like that, but the only feedback the user gets is to the hands. So this joystick will rotate automatically as you walk in your hand to show you where to go, and tilt to show how far away you are. So it's kind of like having a friend by your side 24/7 who can hold your hand, lead you to your destination every time, and you always have a companion. So this is kind of really early demo footage of it going. So that's evolved now, and I've done a lot of testing with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind in Canada. It's in most of the institutes over there, and also now we're moving into the UK and the US. So you can see the joystick kind of moving as I walk there. So it's very intuitive. The patients love it because you're only following one type of feedback. It's very easy to use. So I was lucky enough to get success with the iAid. We'll jump forward to the next slide. Last year, I became the Queen's Young Leader for Canada. So I work with different youth across the Commonwealth and different leaders across the Commonwealth to specifically address issues of blindness. So one of the things I'm working on now is with an organization called Peak Vision in the UK. So a big problem is that for people who live in Indigenous rural areas or just rural areas, like in many parts of Africa, even where I'm from, northern Canada, they don't get access to quality or routine eye care. So what Peak's done is they developed a new app and a hardware component that it's a macro lens that fits on top of your smartphone camera, and it converts your smartphone into a retinal camera. So we can now use your smartphone to screen your eye, the back of your eye, for retinal diseases like the diseases you get from diabetes. So I'm now bringing this technology and working with them to kind of bring it into Indigenous communities and do pilot tests in Botswana. So last year, I was contacted by Chevrolet. They wanted to tackle the issue of teen texting and driving. So there's basically one way that everybody's doing it right now. They're taking the control out of the teen's hands. So if a teen gets a text, the car will block the user from receiving the text or block the call or anything like that. There's only one problem with that. Teens don't listen to anyone. They're known for not wanting to give up control. So we decided to appeal to the two things that teens do listen to, which are their peers and celebrity role models. So what happens is once you receive a text or when someone sends you a text in the car, the system will bring in, through onboard imagery and auditory systems in the car, a celebrity role model or a peer to discourage you from driving. And we've seen really good results from this. It's a very simple idea, but it's worked wonders. So this idea debuted at Cannes Lions last year and just received wide release 2 weeks ago. So we're kind of in the midst of getting everything going. So there's one thing I haven't told you about these 3 projects, which is that I don't actually now, and didn't then, have the skills, the technical expertise to develop any of these things. I didn't know how to code. I didn't have any experience with cars or anything like that. But I learned that you can crowdsource intelligence. When I wanted to solve a problem, I turned to the internet. And basically, the internet solved the problem for me. But you cannot crowdsource curiosity. Curiosity has to come from within you. It's something that's innate, and that's where the ideas are actually born. So, that's actually, sorry, just another video. So this ability to ask why not is an intrinsic part of us. We're not at danger of losing that. But it relies on curiosity. And humans are excellent killing machines. We have figured out somehow how to kill curiosity. With the pace of technology, with the pace of social media, everything's a knee-jerk response. We no longer have to question why is information that I'm getting actually relevant? Why does it mean something to me? So we have been trained into a different kind of thinking, which I argue is not actually thinking. We're not actually understanding why something works the way it is. So let's go back to my love for animals. There is a species that is going extinct on the planet right now, and it happens to be my favorite species. It's called the curious human. When we're building our companies, we have to stop looking for intelligence, because the world has never profited from intelligence, and I think probably never will. Curiosity is what has shaped the course of human history. Every great mind, every person who has changed history has asked the same question, regardless of what field they're in. Why? Why? We have to not be afraid to do the same. Because if we allow ourselves to be afraid of that, we allow ourselves to become like the monkey. Thank you very much. I also have 2 minutes, so if anyone has any questions or anything, I can take them. Questions? Or I was that clear?
No, just congratulations, brother. It's really, really amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, it's been...
It's a big thing, and it's an honor to meet you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I've met so many interesting people. Working with the CNIB in particular has been eye-opening, because you see a whole different world of innovation and problems that you never typically experience. Right? It's experiencing the world from the perspective of a visually impaired person is a completely different world than the one that I live in. So developing technology like the one I developed was really hard, because I have to shift my perspective from my life into a completely different way of looking at things. I actually closed my eyes when I was testing the device and walked around for a day blindfolded and just tried to figure out what worked for me, what didn't, what was hard, what was not hard. And that kind of process has been really helpful. So I've learned an incredible amount through all these different kind of experiences. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I think I'm done.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Big applause for Alex.